welcome to You Talking to Me. The European Union does not seem to find the European solution to the so-called migration crisis. Instead, national approaches prevail, and we are going to look at some of them with journalists of the Euranet Plus network. We're joined by Olivier Henrion from RTBF.
Bonjour, hello.
Bonjour. And we're joined by Matthias Strost from RTV Slovenia.
Hello.
Hello and welcome. Later on, other journalists from our network will join us on the phone. Olivier, Belgium is known as a very pro-European member of the European Union, very much in favor of common solutions, and yet the country decided to introduce border controls at its border with France not long ago. So how does this fit with the pro-European approach?
Indeed, it seems to be a bit of a contradiction. It seems the Belgian government goes at two opposite directions at the same time. It's just another example of the European agenda being taken over by a domestic agenda. Because you have to know that within the Belgian government, you have two main trends. You have a very pro-European lines, which is the one led by the Prime Minister, Charles Michel, who wants to find a European solution. And you also have another line, which is the one led by NVA. NVA is a nationalist Flemish party, who sits actually in the European Parliament together with the British Tory. And this line is more Eurosceptic. And this party, the NVA, has within its core business the fight against immigration. So when they saw that the French authority were dismantling the jungle in Calais, they got scared. They got scared that there will be a new jungle in Zeebrugge. Zeebrugge is a big port, a big harbor that goes to England. And actually, they saw that statistically there were more people coming in to the French border. And indeed, they decided to reinstore border control.
So kind of a contradictory approach.
But as I said, it was because there are two different agendas, the European one and the domestic one. And the domestic one has taken over the European agenda. But that doesn't mean that Charles Michel will not keep fighting to find a European solution during the summit tomorrow and Friday. It's just that the European solution is not an expressway. It's rather a long and winding road, as would sing the Beatles.
Almost every European leader keeps on underlining that no solution will be found without Turkey as an ally. And this message is perceived rather positively in Turkey. Here's what the Turkish ambassador told Euranet Plus recently.
Up until September, our relationship was, I would describe, muddling through. But since we've had this migration crisis, I think that the silver lining is that it has brought us back together. We are now normalizing our relationship. We've had a number of summits, a number of meetings, dialogue has increased. And I think that this is an opportunity. I mean, every crisis is an opportunity, as they say. And we think that we should maximize this as much as possible. Of course, with a number of challenges still in front of us, but we think that we're on the right track.
Olivier, you follow the debate in the European Parliament on Turkey, on a possible agreement also with Turkey, and the MEPs were rather skeptical.
They were not necessarily on the same tone than the ambassador. Indeed, there was hardly no support, even within the EPP family, the family of Jean-Claude Juncker, Donald Tusk, or Angela Merkel. There was a big fear when they realized that European leaders agreed to speed up the visa-free travel regime with Turkey. They also got scared when they realized that we were about to open 5 new chapters for a possible membership of Turkey within the European Union. But in my view, the one who summarized the risk of this draft agreement, which is being carried out between Turkey and the European Union, is the Belgian Guy Verhofstadt, the leader of the Liberal group within the European Parliament, where he stated that this deal was a deal in which we outsource our problem to Turkey. He also stated that we were about to give the key of the gate of Europe to Erdogan. And he also made another very important point, which is that this agreement is not going to kill the smuggling. On the contrary, if you close all the gates to Europe, you will create new routes, which will be new business opportunities for smugglers, either through Albania or the reopening of an old route like Lampedusa. And I'm sure that it will be what we will see in a few months.
And Guy Verhofstadt also mentioned that the European Coast Guard instead should be enforced, and that's what Annika on Facebook wrote. Instead of giving money to Turkey, we should do better to use this money to have a European border police. Don't you think? That's her comment on Facebook. Asked on how things will proceed, the ambassador said that numbers of refugees arriving from Turkey to EU have to go down and will go down. Let's listen.
We're working with our Greek colleagues, with our Bulgarian colleagues, and we hope that the numbers will go down. Actually, when you look at the trend, it is going down, but not as fast as maybe our EU public opinion wants it to. It will never go down to zero, and that should not be an expectation, but it will go down very much. And the most important point is that it should stay down, especially when the spring and summer arrives. And this is what we're working on with our EU colleagues.
And speaking of Greece, we have Stavros Samoulidis from Sky Radio on the phone. Stavros, what is the Greek expectation here? Alexis Tsipras was rather optimistic when the Turkish Prime Minister was visiting him in Athens. So what's the expectation here in Greece?
Hi, Danièle. So, of course, for Greece, you can imagine that it is in the interest of the country that the number of migrants and refugees go down. We're still implementing hotspots. We're still trying to find solutions in order to control the flow of migrants and refugees. So it is in our interest to cooperate in the best possible way with Turkey. The Prime Minister Davutoglu has been in Greece recently, as well as Prime Minister Tsipras from Greece has visited Turkey. He was even awarded the prize of a doctor by a Turkish university. So we see that on a political level, relationships have become a bit better recently. However, when we look what happens...
Do you believe that this agreement will work with Turkey?
That's the question. When we see what happens on the coastlines between Greece and Turkey, it is a completely different story still. We see the authorities not being willing to cooperate between themselves, and we see pushbacks from both sides. So the agreement, even though it hasn't been signed officially yet, is not implemented. There's a whole big issue of trust still between the authorities, between Greek authorities and Turkish authorities. So we still have to see
right now, Alexis Tsipras, who still fights for a European solution, of course, it's very much in the interest of Greece to have that. He seems to be the biggest supporter of German Chancellor Angela Merkel. So we have now two enemies becoming allies. How is that perceived in the Greek public?
Well, in one sense, the public opinion is very positive, and if I can dare to say this, perhaps from this refugee crisis, the only thing positive we can draw from it is the fact that Greece has become a bit more positive towards Germany, because in the managing of the financial crisis, it was a completely different story between Greece and Germany. At the same time, we see that yes, of course, Chancellor Merkel seems to be the only leader at the moment of a European country to insist for a European solution for the refugee crisis, and also seems to be the only one insisting for the relocation program to be implemented soon. But if we look a bit closer, after the elections of the regional elections in Germany on Sunday, we see that actually Chancellor Merkel admitted during a press conference that the fact that the Balkan route was closed recently down, it has actually favored her in her recent elections. So we don't know what's going to be the stance in the next weeks or months to come. it is.
Thank you, Savas. We are going to talk about Angela Merkel a little bit later. Matthias, Slovenia chose another way. One day after the summit, the country announced to stop transit from refugees. Although on the summit, this was not an official decision. So were you surprised by this announcement one day after the EU summit?
No, not at all, because Slovenian government has already said after, I think it was February summit, that it will join Austria with all the measures necessary to stop the flow of migrants from Greece. So basically it was just something that was talked about before the summit, not emphasized at the summit. I would say it was due to the fact that everybody wanted to present a positive picture with this talk with Turkey and the agreement in principle that they've got. And it wasn't really a surprise. I mean, you have to know that the Slovenian government has set up a fence along the Croatian border a couple of months ago. So basically everything that they have done is basically in order to prevent people from coming from Croatia and with this regional Austrian and Slovenian and Hungarian even initiative to stop the border from between Macedonia and Greece, to basically stop the flow there. So no surprises there, I would say.
The Greek, the Slovenian Prime Minister got support from Council President Donald Tusk. He tweeted, and this caused some discussions here in Brussels and in Germany also. He thanked actually the Balkan countries for their move and said that they were part of the EU comprehensive strategy. The Greek Prime Minister has another interpretation of the conclusions of the summit. He spoke about unilateral actions and attacked Donald Tusk by saying he should focus on implementing common decisions. So obviously the understanding of what has been decided in common is very different here.
It's quite interesting to see that, because I mean it's usually like this, because people, I mean leaders from EU states would come back home and sell this whatever happens in Brussels, a compromise, as their own victory. But in this case, I mean we have seen this move, you know, from Tusk already in February, when he was referring to regional solutions being implemented. This could be part of the, EU solution. So basically, Tusk was also all the time talking basically the language of the Central European countries, Austria, Slovenia, even Hungary. I mean, we can't forget that he is from Poland, so that's a Visegrad 4 country.
So a different language we are hearing from the European Commission. And German Chancellor Angela Merkel reacted by saying that border closures are neither sustainable nor lasting in tackling the crisis. And we have Claudia Knopke from German Euranet Plus member AMS on the phone. Angela Merkel got the feedback on her refugee policy this weekend in different regional elections, where those who are completely opposed to her strategy were the big winners, Claudia. Now is the time of the big analysis of these votes. For sure, Merkel has not been strengthened by these results, but it could have been worse, couldn't it?
Yes and no. So everybody here is regarding the election results as a kind of warning shot. That means you get a chance to get the refugee crisis under control, and if you don't do so, it will go much further towards the right. So the voters would now expect a really clear signal. Angela Merkel even wants to keep on track. Support she gets, among others, from her coalition partner SPD, but much more criticism comes from the sister party, the CSU, and the party leader Horst Seehofer wants Merkel to change her refugee policy drastically, not only since the weekend, we all know, and he wants national limitation for the numbers of refugees and a much harder line on the German border.
We have a European summit coming up. Do you think that Angela Merkel will stand by her conviction on finding a European solution?
Yeah, I think so. She wants to. and she's telling all of us repeatedly. And this noon she will give a government statement to the summit, and the planned agreement with Turkey will be the main topic. And Merkel wants to point out again how that can help to lower the numbers of refugees coming to Western Europe. And during the last days over here in Germany, and even today, this morning, the EU membership for Turkey has been repeatedly addressed. Merkel herself, she tried to allay concerns in this regard. And at the meeting of the foreign ministers, the German representative said yesterday in Brussels, Germany see accession talks as an opportunity. But this morning on German TV, the CSU secretary Scheuer said, no full membership for Turkey to the EU, no complete visa freedom, only releases maybe. So there are different opportunities, and you see the theme is a very present one over here in Germany.
Okay, we have the summit coming up. Maybe a very last question with a short answer. Will this summit bring the breakthrough, or will Europe fall apart, Olivier?
A few countries have already stated that the agreement with Turkey as such needs to be renegotiated, the latest being the Cyprus president yesterday. Even Donald Tusk said that the agreement needs to be redone according to international law. So I don't know if we will reach an agreement. For sure, we will need to renegotiate this agreement.
Matthias?
It apparently will be a hard summit, and I would point out the trust that we were talking about. I don't think there is a lot of trust between the EU leaders and even more between the EU leaders and Turkey.
Okay, we talk about this summit. Thank you very much for your visit here, Matthias, Olivier. Thank you all, and see you soon on You Talking to Me.